Pacific didn't just tell a war story, it recreated the brutal island-hopping campaign with an intensity that left audiences shaken. HBO had already set the bar with Band of Brothers, but this miniseries pushed far beyond, demanding sacrifices few productions would dare attempt. Behind the visceral combat sequences lies a web of extraordinary decisions, from budget choices that made executives nervous to physical transformations that pushed actors to their breaking point. What emerged wasn't just expensive television, it was a landmark that changed how war could be portrayed on screen. The secrets behind its creation reveal a production willing to risk everything for truth, and what that commitment cost everyone involved. Number 1. A budget that shocked HBO. The price tag for the Pacific climbed so high that even HBO's leadership had to pause and reconsider. With a final budget exceeding $200 million, it became the most expensive miniseries ever produced at that time, surpassing even Band of Brothers by a significant margin. The money went directly into creating massive physical sets, coordinating thousands of extras, and constructing entire Pacific Island environments from scratch. Every battle required weeks of preparation, with pyrotechnics teams, stunt coordinators, and military advisors all demanding resources. Producers defended the astronomical spending by pointing to an uncompromising goal: complete authenticity. They argued that cutting corners would betray the Marines whose stories they were telling. HBO ultimately agreed, betting that audiences would recognize the difference between standard war drama and something genuinely honest. Number 2. Marines trained like real recruits. The cast didn't just memorize lines and show up on set. They endured a punishing boot camp designed by actual Marine Corps veterans. For weeks before filming, actors were subjected to the same brutal regimen that transforms civilians into combat-ready Marines. They woke before dawn, ran obstacle courses, and learned to handle period-accurate weapons. The veterans leading training showed no mercy, pushing actors through forced marches in full gear and tactical drills under pressure. Sleep deprivation became a tool, forcing the cast to operate in constant exhaustion. The physical pain created a shared experience that no acting technique could replicate. This hardship forged genuine bonds between actors, transforming them into something resembling an actual platoon. When cameras rolled, the exhaustion in their eyes wasn't manufactured. The training fundamentally changed how they understood the men they were portraying. Number 3. Filming in brutal Australian heat. The Australian locations offered the right visual elements, but they came with an environmental challenge nobody fully anticipated. Temperatures regularly soared above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity made the air suffocating. Actors wore heavy wool uniforms, carried full equipment loads, and performed demanding scenes while smoke machines added even more heat. Crew members collapsed from heat exhaustion with alarming regularity, forcing production to implement mandatory hydration schedules and frequent breaks. Cameras struggled in the conditions, with condensation forming inside housings. Medical personnel stood by constantly, treating everything from dehydration to heat stroke. The cruel irony wasn't lost on anyone. The miserable conditions actually helped achieve the production's goal. The genuine suffering visible on screen mirrored what Marines had endured decades earlier. The sweat wasn't added in post-production, and the visible strain reflected real physical duress. Number 4. Jungle battlefields built from scratch. The Australian landscape bore little resemblance to Pacific Island jungles, so the art department faced the monumental task of creating dense tropical environments where none existed. Teams spent months transforming open areas into convincing battlefields, importing thousands of plants and constructing traditional villages with elaborate fortification systems. Construction crews dug trenches, created dugouts, and built Japanese defensive positions using period-accurate techniques. New structures were artificially aged to look battle-worn before filming began. Entire hillsides were reshaped to match volcanic terrain, with thousands of tons of earth moved. The practical build served as foundation, but CGI teams extended these environments far beyond what was physically constructed. Digital artists added distant mountains, expanded jungle canopies, and populated backgrounds with additional vegetation. The seamless integration created vast battle spaces that felt overwhelmingly real. Number 5. Prosthetics that transformed actors. The makeup teams faced a difficult challenge in depicting the visible toll of jungle warfare on human bodies. Burns from explosions, tropical diseases, infected wounds, and gradual physical deterioration all required specialized prosthetic work. Artists spent months researching medical archives and wartime photographs to understand how these injuries appeared. Creating realistic wounds wasn't enough. The prosthetics had to maintain appearance through hours of shooting in extreme heat. Traditional makeup would melt within minutes, so artists developed new techniques using layered textures and heat-resistant materials. Each prosthetic piece required hours of application before filming. The attention to detail extended to showing progressive deterioration rather than static injuries. A character's skin condition would change subtly between episodes, showing cumulative damage of exposure and stress. This continuity work required meticulous documentation to ensure accuracy even when scenes were shot out of sequence. Number 6. Real letters that shaped key scenes. The emotional backbone of the Pacific came from an unexpected source: actual wartime letters written by the men whose stories were being told. Robert Leckie, Eugene Sledge, and John Basilone all left behind correspondence that revealed their inner thoughts, fears, and observations in ways no historian's account could capture. Writers discovered that some letters contained dialogue so authentic and powerful that adapting them word for word made more sense than inventing alternatives. Certain scenes lift phrases directly from these personal writings, preserving the exact voice of the men who lived through the battles. This direct connection to primary sources gave the series something rare, genuine emotional truth that audiences could feel even without knowing its origin. The letters didn't just inform the writing, they became the writing, ensuring the Marines' own voices shaped how their stories reached the screen. Number 7. The Basilone casting debate. Finding the right actor to portray John Basilone created one of the longest discussions in the entire pre-production process. Basilone's story presented a unique challenge. He was a genuine hero who earned the Medal of Honor, yet he remained humble and conflicted about his fame. The role demanded someone who could embody both extraordinary courage and discomfort with celebrity. Producers searched for months, looking for an actor who could convey heroism without appearing self-aware about it. The role required physical credibility as a Marine, emotional depth to show inner conflict, and the ability to make wartime heroism feel human rather than mythic. John Seda ultimately earned the role after demonstrating he understood the contradiction at Basilone's core. He prepared by studying real Marine testimonies and researching Basilone's life beyond the famous battle. His approach focused on portraying a man uncomfortable with his own legend. Number 8. Cameras that couldn't handle the jungle. The filming environment created technical nightmares that threatened to derail production schedules repeatedly. Humidity, smoke, and airborne debris conspired to damage expensive camera equipment faster than anyone anticipated. Lens fogging became a constant problem, with condensation forming inside housings and obscuring shots mid-take. The moisture didn't just affect visibility, it infiltrated internal mechanisms, causing electronic failures and mechanical jams. Cameras would simply stop functioning in the middle of crucial scenes, forcing expensive resets. The tropical conditions exceeded what the equipment was designed to withstand. Production responded by creating dedicated maintenance teams whose sole job was keeping cameras operational. These technicians worked around the clock, disassembling equipment to dry internal components and developing new protective strategies. Some filming techniques had to be completely redesigned to work around the equipment's limitations. Number 9. Flamethrowers closer than you think. The flamethrower sequences in the Pacific carry a visceral terror that CGI alone couldn't have achieved. Production made the bold decision to use controlled real fire for these effects, accepting inherent risks in exchange for authentic visual impact. The flames audiences see on screen were actual fire shot at carefully calculated distances from actors. Safety protocols were extreme, involving heat-resistant rigs, multiple safety barriers, and stunt coordinators monitoring every flame burst. Actors had to trust that measurements were exact and that safety teams could respond instantly to any deviation. Even with precautions, the heat and proximity created genuine danger everyone on set could feel. The decision to minimize CGI for flamethrower scenes paid off in authenticity. The way real fire moves and interacts with the environment cannot be perfectly replicated digitally. The terror visible on actors' faces wasn't entirely performed. They were reacting to real flames close enough to feel. Number 10. Costumes designed to look destroyed. The wardrobe department faced an unusual challenge, making brand new Marine uniforms look like they'd been worn continuously through months of jungle warfare. Simply dirtying costumes wasn't enough. The team needed to replicate specific patterns of deterioration that matched historical photographs and veteran descriptions. Costumes underwent elaborate distressing processes that included adding sweat stains in anatomically correct locations, creating mold patterns that matched humid environments, and strategically placing tiers and fraying. Chemical treatments simulated how tropical moisture degraded fabric over time. Each uniform told a story of gradual physical decline. The costumes evolved throughout filming to reflect each character's journey. A uniform that looked merely worn in early episodes would show progressive deterioration in later ones, with colors fading and fabric weakening. This attention to continuity meant tracking hundreds of costume pieces and ensuring each one aged appropriately as the story progressed. Number 11. Coordinating hundreds of extras. The massive battle sequences required organizing hundreds of extras, stunt performers, and military advisors into convincing combat formations. Each battle scene became a logistical puzzle where every person needed precise positioning, timing, and choreography. A single take could involve coordinating 200 people, while explosions detonated on exact cues. Military advisors worked directly with extras to ensure formations matched actual Marine tactics from the Pacific campaign. Every movement had to look authentic: how soldiers advanced under fire, how they took cover, how they communicated. Rehearsals consumed entire days, with formations practiced and reset repeatedly. The challenge multiplied when scenes stretched across multiple shooting days. Every extra needed to be in the same position, wearing the same level of damage each time cameras rolled. Production assistants documented positions with photographs and diagrams, creating reference materials that allowed the team to recreate complex scenes without visible errors. Number 12. Lighting night battles with movie magic. The nighttime combat sequences presented a visual paradox. They needed to feel authentically dark while remaining visible enough for audiences to follow the action. Traditional lighting would destroy the atmosphere, but shooting in actual darkness would render everything incomprehensible. The solution required innovative combinations of practical and digital techniques. Massive light rigs were positioned far from the action, creating ambient illumination that mimicked moonlight without obvious sources. Layered haze and smoke helped diffuse the light naturally, softening harsh edges while adding atmospheric depth. The lighting had to shift constantly as cameras moved. Weather became an unexpected variable that forced creative problem-solving. Sudden cloud cover would change ambient light levels mid-scene, requiring rapid adjustments. Rain would scatter light differently than planned. Rather than halt production, crews learned to adapt lighting setups on the fly, turning obstacles into opportunities for more dynamic visuals. Number 13. Sledge's memoir changed everything. A single book fundamentally altered the entire direction of the Pacific during development. Eugene Sledge's memoir, With the Old Breed, provided such vivid, unflinching detail about combat in the Pacific that it became the emotional and narrative foundation for much of the series. His descriptions went beyond tactical facts to capture psychological deterioration. The writing team expanded character arcs and emotional beats specifically because Sledge's memories revealed layers of experience that other sources hadn't captured. His harsh, unromantic descriptions influenced not just individual scenes, but the entire tone of the series. The decision to lean heavily into his perspective shifted the show away from traditional heroic narratives. Sledge's influence extended beyond his own character's storyline. His observations about how men changed under sustained combat stress informed how other characters were written. The book gave writers permission to show ugliness and psychological damage without apology. Number 14. Veterans guiding every detail. Real Marine veterans served as consultants throughout production, and their influence reached every aspect of filming. These weren't ceremonial advisors brought in for publicity. They were present on set daily, correcting movements, adjusting dialogue, and calling out anything that felt inauthentic. Their authority was absolute when it came to accuracy. The veterans caught details that would have slipped past everyone else. They noticed when an actor held a rifle incorrectly, when formations didn't match actual tactics, or when dialogue included terminology that hadn't existed yet. Some corrections seemed minor until the veterans explained why they mattered. Their involvement went beyond catching errors. Veterans suggested scenes that hadn't been in the original scripts, moments drawn from their own experiences. Some of the series' most powerful sequences exist because a veteran insisted that particular aspects of combat or daily life deserved representation. Number 15. Explosions made mostly with real fire. The explosive violence throughout the Pacific relied primarily on practical pyrotechnics rather than digital effects. Production teams buried charges in sand, logs, and foliage to create fragmentation patterns that matched historical accounts of artillery impacts. Each explosion was engineered to throw debris in realistic directions while keeping performers safe. The decision to use real fire created interactions that CGI couldn't replicate. Actual concussive force moved actors' clothing, real heat created visible atmospheric distortion, and genuine debris filled the air with texture that digital effects struggle to match. The physical presence of explosions affected performances in ways that green screen work never could. Coordinating practical explosions with actor movements required precise timing and extensive safety measures. Pyrotechnics teams calculated blast radiuses and positioned charges to create visual impact without endangering anyone. Despite precautions, the unpredictability of real explosives meant every take carried risk. Number 16. The expensive beach landing. The Peleliu landing sequence became one of the most expensive scenes ever filmed for television, with each take costing approximately $13,500. This staggering figure reflected the massive coordination required. Synchronized landing craft, hundreds of extras, precisely timed explosions, and multiple camera positions all had to align perfectly. A single mistake meant resetting everything and burning through another $13,000. The financial pressure created intense focus where every department understood that errors weren't just creative setbacks, they were budget disasters. The landing craft had to hit their marks exactly. Explosives had to detonate on cue, and actors had to execute choreography flawlessly. Coordinating the timing between boats approaching shore, extras storming the beach, and pyrotechnics detonating in sequence required military precision. The scene demanded multiple takes despite the cost, as the team refused to compromise on authenticity for one of the Pacific War's most brutal battles. Number 17. Scripts originally far more intense. The earliest drafts of the Pacific contained battlefield material so graphic that even the writers questioned whether audiences could handle it. Initial scripts depicted violence and its aftermath, with unflinching detail that went beyond anything previously shown on television. Producers faced difficult decisions about how much reality viewers could process without becoming overwhelmed. The debate centered on balancing historical honesty with viewer endurance. The creative team wanted to honor the brutality Marines experienced, but showing everything risked alienating audiences. Certain sequences were softened not to sanitize war, but to keep viewers engaged rather than repelled. Despite the revisions, several extremely intense sequences survived intact, because removing them would have fundamentally betrayed the Marines' experiences. The final version still shocked audiences, but the original scripts would have pushed far beyond what HBO deemed acceptable for broadcast television. Number 18. Finding the perfect Leckie. The search for an actor to portray Robert Leckie stretched on for months as producers struggled to find someone who embodied a specific combination of qualities. Leckie's character required sharp intelligence, natural humor, introspective depth, and the ability to convey emotional complexity without overplaying it. The role demanded someone who could make viewers feel Leckie's internal struggles through subtle performance. Producers needed someone capable of carrying narrative weight while appearing ordinary rather than heroically cinematic. Leckie served as the series' literary voice, the observer who processed the war through a writer's lens. The wrong casting would undermine one of the show's three core perspectives. James Badge Dale ultimately earned the role after demonstrating he understood Leckie's contradictions. Dale prepared by studying Leckie's memoir and personal letters, absorbing the Marine's distinctive voice. His research focused on capturing how Leckie used humor as a survival mechanism against psychological erosion. Number 19. CGI used more than anyone realized. The perception that the Pacific relied primarily on practical effects obscures how extensively digital artists enhanced nearly every frame. CGI work remained deliberately invisible, used not to create spectacle, but to support realism. Digital artists extended landscapes beyond physical sets, removed modern structures, added aircraft to skies, and widened battlefields to match historical scale. Specific scenes that appear entirely practical actually contain layers of digital enhancement. Distant hills were often computer-generated extensions of real terrain. Skies were frequently replaced to match weather conditions that existed when battles occurred. Even crowd sizes were digitally expanded to create the massive scale of Pacific battles. The production's philosophy treated CGI as a tool for authenticity rather than spectacle. Digital work succeeded when audiences never questioned what they were seeing, when enhancements blended so seamlessly with practical elements that distinguishing between them became impossible. Number 20. Mud-created chaos on set. Heavy rainfall transformed filming locations into treacherous mud pits that created unexpected challenges throughout production. What had been solid ground became deep muck that swallowed equipment, trapped vehicles, and turned simple movements into exhausting struggles. The mud wasn't just inconvenient, it fundamentally altered how certain scenes could be filmed. Vehicles that were supposed to move through shots became stuck, forcing crews to spend hours extracting them. Actors slipped repeatedly during takes, and equipment had to be rerouted through longer paths to avoid the deepest areas. The unpredictability meant production schedules constantly shifted as teams adapted to changing ground conditions. The chaos produced an unexpected benefit. The mud enhanced authenticity in ways that deliberate set design couldn't match. The genuine difficulty actors experienced moving through deep muck and the filth coating, everything created a level of realism that felt lived in rather than staged. Number 21. A timeline almost too hard to follow. The editorial team faced an enormous challenge, balancing 3 separate storylines that unfolded across different islands and time periods. Eugene Sledge, Robert Leckie, and John Basilone never crossed paths, yet their experiences needed to feel connected within a cohesive narrative. Early cuts revealed that jumping between perspectives confused viewers struggling to track which character was where. Editors restructured entire episodes to improve clarity without sacrificing the historical importance of maintaining separate perspectives. The decision to keep the 3 storylines distinct rather than artificially weaving them together reflected commitment to accuracy. These men lived parallel but separate wars. The challenge intensified because each character's arc carried different emotional weight and pacing. Sledge's story built slowly toward Okinawa's horror, Leckie's explored psychological strain, and Basilone's moved from combat glory to conflicted celebrity. Maintaining momentum across all 3 required constant recalibration during post-production. Number 22. Recreating Okinawa's ruined landscape. The production faced the task of recreating one of the Pacific War's most devastated battlefields, Okinawa, after weeks of artillery bombardment. The art department needed to show a landscape stripped of life, where every tree had been reduced to splintered stumps and the earth churned into cratered wasteland. Construction teams built the environment using layered rubble, burned and positioned trees, artificially cratered earth, and constant smoke atmospherics. The team studied historical photographs obsessively, matching the specific patterns of destruction that artillery created. Even the mud had to be the right consistency and color. The bleak landscape affected the actors emotionally in ways that surprised everyone. Working day after day in an environment deliberately designed to look apocalyptic created a psychological weight that influenced performances. The oppressive atmosphere wasn't just visual, it became something the cast felt, adding genuine exhaustion and despair. Number 23. Basilone's Medal of Honor Challenge. John Basilone's famous Medal of Honor moment required some of the most complex coordination in the entire series. The sequence depicting his legendary defense on Guadalcanal demanded precise choreography of pyrotechnics, dozens of extras, and extended camera takes that couldn't be broken up without losing impact. Every element had to synchronize perfectly while maintaining the chaos of actual combat. The team kept performers safe amid flying debris through meticulous planning and rehearsal. Stunt coordinators mapped every movement, pyrotechnics experts calculated safe distances, and medical personnel stood ready. Despite precautions, the scene's intensity meant genuine risk that everyone understood. Multiple takes were necessary to capture the sequence perfectly, with each attempt requiring complete reset of all elements. The pressure mounted as costs accumulated and exhaustion set in. The final version represents collective determination to honor one of the most extraordinary moments of valor in Marine Corps history. Number 24. The series that revived marine history. The impact of the Pacific extended far beyond entertainment, sparking renewed public interest in Marine Corps history and the Pacific Theater. Museums reported significant increases in attendance for Pacific War exhibits, and sales of memoirs by Sledge, Leckie, and other Pacific veterans surged dramatically. Academic historians noted heightened interest in researching this previously overshadowed campaign. The series reconnected families with wartime stories that had been buried for decades. Veterans who had never discussed their experiences found themselves willing to share memories with grandchildren who now understood the context. Historical societies reported increased engagement from younger generations. Educational institutions incorporated the series into curriculum for studying World War II, recognizing how the dramatization made the Pacific Theater accessible in ways that textbooks struggled to achieve. The show's unexpected role as an educational catalyst demonstrated how authentic historical drama could generate genuine interest. Number 25. A legacy built on emotional honesty. The lasting impact of the Pacific stems not from its budget or battle sequences, but from its willingness to portray war without traditional heroic framing. The series showed psychological deterioration, moral ambiguity, and the gradual erosion of humanity that combat inflicts on those who survive it. This approach made viewers uncomfortable in ways that honored the actual experience. Traditional war narratives build toward triumph and resolution, but the Pacific refused that structure. Characters didn't emerge transformed into better versions of themselves. They emerged damaged, struggling to reconcile what they had witnessed. The series portrayed survival not as victory, but as its own form of burden. This commitment to emotional authenticity over comfortable storytelling explains why the Pacific remains one of the most honest war dramas ever made. It didn't ask viewers to celebrate war or condemn it. It simply showed what it cost. That honesty, more than any technical achievement, defines its legacy and ensures its continued relevance. More than a decade after its release, The Pacific stands as a landmark achievement in television, not because of its record-breaking budget, but because it refused to compromise on truth. The series captured the actual psychological and physical cost of war, portrayed with respect for the Marines who lived through it. Every sacrifice made during production served a singular purpose: honoring men who endured far worse. The decision to prioritize reality over comfort created a series that continues to resonate with audiences who recognize the difference between spectacle and substance. The Pacific didn't just recreate history, it preserved the voices of men whose stories deserve to be told without embellishment. If you found these revelations eye-opening, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the secrets behind your favorite films and series. Which of these secrets most changed how you view the Pacific? Tell us in the comments below.